Hello, everyone. My name's Richard Denning. I'm a member of the board of Restorative Practices International, and today I have the privilege of interviewing a fellow board member, Moana Emett. Good morning, Moana.
Good morning, Richard from Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Yes, and I should acknowledge I'm coming from Canberra, the lands of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people, and acknowledge their elders, past and present. So, Moana, I had a few questions that I was going to ask you. I hope that will be fine. And so the first thing I wanted to ask you to do is just tell us a bit about who you are.
Yeah, kia ora for that, Richard. I'm going to just start with my own Indigenous language here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So kia ora everyone, ko Moana Emett tōku ingoa, no tauranga moana tōku whānau, ko Eruera rao ko Maria oku mātua, ko Hone tōku hōrangatira, uh, uh, kei te noho ahau i te rohi o Tai Tokerau kei whangarei ahau. Tihei mauri ora. So, kia ora everyone. My name is Moana Emett, and my family live mainly in the space of Tauranga Moana, which is in the Bay of Plenty, so the east coast of New Zealand. And I am the daughter of Maria and Eddie Brown, and the wife of John Emmett. My heritage is Indigenous Maori here from New Zealand and Scottish and also English. And I'm married to an Irishman. I live in Northland, New Zealand, and this is where I live. This is at the end of my driveway. I live right on the ocean. My name Moana actually means the ocean in my language, and that's something that I really love to be beside. It keeps me grounded, and it's my happy place. So that's a little bit about me. And what else would you like to know, Richard?
Wonderful. So I'm wondering if you can tell everyone a bit about what brought you into the restorative practices space.
Hmm. So my background is in education. I've been in education for over 30 years and originally trained in secondary education, working with teenagers, and and I was a health and physical education teacher. So, teaching young people, teenagers, how to uh, how to have a great relationship with their own bodies and to be able to do amazing, magical things with their bodies. And of course, through teaching teenagers, young people, young adults, I would watch them sort of come in at the age of 12, 13 years of age, and then this sort of 5 year transition of change as their bodies changed and of course their emotions and their brains dropped off from being online and then re-emerged from being online, and often in those spaces where the brain was not fully engaged, doing some dumb stuff or stupid stuff, or stuff that caused problems or issues in their own lives and sometimes rippling out to others. And so, experiencing that, I wanted to be able to support those young people in a way to be able to address those issues and challenges, and I guess in a way that allowed them to be accountable and responsible, but with lots of support. I noticed that for many of them that they really struggled with strategies to be able to keep themselves regulated, and when they did do that dumb stuff, or when they caused harm to themselves or others, they really needed even more support to be able to put things right. I was really lucky that, well, I've been really lucky that I've grown up in a family and a family system and a culture where restoration and reconciliation is part of the way that we do things. And it's really important. I come from a really big family and we see each other a lot. And so, being able to get on with each other was really important to me and my family. Um, I belong to two tribes, Ngāti Ranginui and Ngāti Pūkenga. So those are my two Indigenous tribes here in New Zealand. So not only am I part of my own family, I'm one of about 50 cousins. My dad is one of 13 children. My mum is one of three. And so I've got all these cousins. Um, and we also are part of a sub tribe, and we're part of a much bigger tribe. And so we're very connected to our land, we're connected to each other, and we're connected to ensuring that whatever we do is for the well-being of all of us. That we talk about it takes a village. Well, they are my first village. And so, in terms of restoration and reconciliation and well-being, that's my first system that I go to for support. Um, and so, as I found myself in the education system, often those supports are missing. And at the time that I was teaching in the sort of late 90s and early 2000s, this body of restorative practice was starting to emerge. And of course, in those days, it was coming out of the justice space. So it was called restorative justice, but that has shifted and moved over a number of years. And now in the education space, we talk about restorative practices, those practices that are highly relational, that contribute to a strong relationship culture that sits across a school or a classroom, a community, that wraps around the ways that we work together, guides us in the ways that we work together. And of course, when there are issues or challenges or harm has emerged, then what are the ways that we can restore that, where we uphold what we call the mana or the well-being of that person, where it's respectful, and where we look to move forward in a way that is going to work for as many of the parties involved as possible, if not all of them. So um, I met Marg Thorsborn, so that's also was been part of my journey. So Marg Thorsborn, who is the current chair of RPI, she was my first, I guess I would say my first formal teacher of restorative practices at that time. But I did come with a background already of being highly relational and highly restorative from my own upbringing and my cultural upbringing. So I met Marg. I did her 3-day training. At that time, I was teaching in an all-girls school, and I went back to school the next week, and I had the privilege of experiencing my first restorative practice conference, and that conference involved 24 people, of which 7 of them were 7 young women and their families. What had happened included assault on one of the students by the other students who had sort of set up um, a, a, an incident after school. And so, as we went through that process, I found that the training that I had received actually held me in really good stead, even though I'd only had it the week before. The process itself was so robust that it enabled me, I felt strong enough to be able to start that process of finding out what has happened with these students. And even more interestingly, how did they even get to that point in the first place? Because there was a backstory, a big backstory of harm that hadn't been addressed in the first place. And then exploring with them, who was involved and how were they involved and who was affected and how were they affected and what did they think needed to happen to start putting things right. And of course, then also working with the families similarly along those lines, and then ensuring that we had support within that circle, because we could see that these young women were going to continue to need support moving forward. They're at the start of their time at the secondary school that I was in, and so we were going to have them for 5 years, and we wanted them to be successful. So, what was the wraparound support as part of that follow up? Moving forward. And that was my baptism into the restorative conferencing space. And since then, that was almost 20 years ago. Since then, I've been involved in a lot of restorative conferences, mainly with young people, but also with some adults too, generally in education. So that's been my journey into this space, Richard.
Amazing, Moana. I can see how you got the bug, I suppose.
I got the bug, Richard. It got me so well it was interesting at that time in my life. I just thought I was just going to be a health and PE teacher. I moved into at that time where I got trained. I was a deputy principal in that school, and it actually changed the direction in education that I ended up going in my career. That's how life-changing it was for me, and that has led me to where I am today.
Amazing.
Mm.
Can you tell us a bit about your work in restorative practices now?
Yeah, sure. Um, well, today I am the professional leader of a restorative practice, a professional development program here in New Zealand that is currently working with 500 schools from primary through to intermediate, sort of middle school and secondary school. So, from our 5 year olds all the way to our 17, 18 year olds. And I'm lead an amazing team of practitioners who are spread out across New Zealand, who work regionally, and we work in depth with our schools. So we initially we connect with them, we connect with their all of their staff, their students, their community, the whoever the indigenous tribes are of those spaces. We want to know who they are. We want to create those connections with those families, and we call them the hapu or the tribes of that space, the iwi of that space, and we look at a comprehensive 3 year plan of implementation of working relationally restoratively. And we're there to support them to really grow a culture that is highly relational, that is warm, that is respectful, that reflects the values we call them in my language, the tikanga of that community. And we look at focus on that relational culture and then our restorative ways of working comprehensively. And that takes about 3 years to grow that culture and to shift that culture into that space. And then how do we continue to maintain and sustain that? Um, my coming into this space, when I first started, we had 28 schools, and that was in 2015. It's Ministry of Education funded. I don't know if there's any other country internationally that have a fully funded um, professional development program in restorative practice that any school in New Zealand can ask to be part of. Um, and so, because it is funded nationally, I work for the University of Waikato, so they hold the contract with the Ministry of Education to be able to deliver this professional development service. And so, I'm part of the wider university team that supports us. And yeah, on a day-to-day basis, still occasionally working with schools in my own region. So that keeps my finger on the pulse in terms of what's happening. But a lot of my work now really is just overseeing the project and supporting the other facilitators in this space with the work that they're doing in schools. Yeah.
Amazing. That sounds so good, Moana. Um, I'll have to chat to you more about all these things. Um, but maybe just to finish this off, can you share with us your favorite place in New Zealand and why?
Mm, mm. I'm probably going to say where my family have lived. This is my Ngāti Ranginui family and some of my Ngāti Pukenga family, which is in the Bay of Plenty, Tauranga Moana, because I've lived there for well over 800 years, 8 to 900 years. And it is just the most special, magical place. It's very similar to what you can see behind me. There's a even bigger mountain than the one behind me, right on the ocean, and it's just beautiful. Yeah, that would be my place. And if you haven't been there, then please visit there. And my second favourite place would probably be the South Island, the whole of the South Island, to Waiponamu. It is just spectacular. Queenstown, yeah, just spectacular. So big shout out to our cousins, our whānau, our mates on the other side of the ditch in Australia, and of course we've got a lot of our own Indigenous people living there too. If you haven't been to Aotearoa, New Zealand, please come on over. We would love to see you and host you.
Thanks, Moana. It's I hope everyone else has enjoyed listening to you talk about who you are and what you do as much as I have. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Richard.